really helpful because it just keeps down the background noise, and it means that if one of your family does come in to ask for something or whatever, you don't have to worry about everybody hearing that. We have got a chat facility, and so please do feel free to type in it, and let's get that started by just seeing where everybody is today. So I'm going to type in where I'm from. I'm in West Chiltington in West Sussex. And if you feel comfortable doing so, type in the chat, because you never know. There could be a fellow reflexologist living close by who you've not yet had the pleasure of meeting. And don't think of them as a competitor. Think of them as an extension of your own business. Because my theory behind this is that the nature of reflexology and the nature of the therapeutic relationship that we have with our clients means that there will always be some clients who aren't a fit for me. But if I know my local reflexologist, then I can always say, try some reflexology with X or Y. Likewise, if you only don't do home visits, but your fellow reflexologist down the road does do home visits, then when somebody rings and says, oh, I desperately need a home visit, you don't have to feel like you're letting them down, because you know that so-and-so who only lives 5 miles away is the reflexologist that is happy to go to people's houses. So we're not competitors to each other. We're an extension of each other's business. That's just my humble opinion. It's a way that I reframed it when I realized that when I put my postcode into the AOR Find a Reflexologist search, there were nearly 60 reflexologists within under 10 miles of my house. And I had that initial freak where I went, oh my God, I'll never get any clients, to, oh, actually, that's quite useful. So there we go. So what have we got? We've got West Midlands, lots of West Sussex on here. You see, I told you reflexology is very popular in West Sussex. I did spot somebody in Worthing and somebody in Horsham. So yeah, you see, now I know you ladies. So yeah, brilliant. Oh, East Lothian, Scotland, excellent. Righty-ho. Now, as we go, if you've got any questions that come up, please do feel free to pop them in the chat. If you don't want them to be seen by everybody, but you want a question asked, then please just, there's a drop-down box in the chat which it starts on everyone, but then you can select who you want to send the message to. So you just select me, and then I will glance at the chat and as we go through, and I can answer the questions then, and I won't identify you if you've just messaged me directly. Okay. So that's one way you can get any anxieties or worries out of the way. Now, if you haven't done any training with me before, I always have a little disclaimer at the beginning of my training to say that nothing that I give here is medical advice in any way, shape or form. All the information that I share in all the training that I do is based upon training that I've undertaken and am therefore licensed to deliver, research that I've read and shared, and modalities that I'm licensed again to deliver. But in any situation, you know you, and you know your past medical history and your past psychological history. So take everything and absorb it, and then use what you want to based on your circumstances and with a good old-fashioned dose of common sense. So there we go. Right, let me tell you a little bit about me before we get into some content. So my career started a long time ago, back in the 1980s, when I trained to be a nurse. So this is me. This is the one not looking at the camera, 21, absolutely, totally camera shy. We'd just been presented with our hats and belts as we just qualified as registered general nurses. And that was in the Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps. So sometimes we looked like this, and sometimes we looked like this. This was actually after we'd done a fun march, which was a marathon length, 26 miles along the South Downs, in squad formation. Well, let me be honest, nurses, military nurses are not necessarily recognised for their level of marching. We leave that to the infantry and to the guards. So 26 miles in formation was quite some achievement. And I still am connected in that I'm a veteran, so I do even go to the cenotaph and do my bit marching past the cenotaph, wearing my still slightly dodgy shaped beret. Now, my journey to reflexology came in 2003 it was. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and polycystic ovarian syndrome is, an imbalance of hormones and particularly insulin resistance. And in fact, my diet was pretty good and my exercise was pretty good, but my stress levels were through the roof. And my consultant picked up on that and suggested to me that I might want to look at my level of stress in my life. And he was quite, as a gynecologist, he was quite ahead of his time in looking at things from a very holistic perspective. Now, at the time, I had been promoted from being the test manager for some medical software to being the UK managing director. Which was well out of my comfort zone. And I'd been doing that role for about 18 months. And the company was in the process of being sold, and the big parent company was an American company. So I was trotting backwards and forwards to America. And I was still wearing a nurse's hat, but being a businesswoman. And really, if I'm honest, I was flying by the seat of my pants most of the time. I also was lone parent to 3 primary school aged children. And my ex-husband was a recovering alcoholic with quite severe mental health problems. And so when my consultant said, you need to reduce your stress, Helen, my first thought was, what stress? I'm not stressed. I'm just a woman that's coping. I've got a lot of plates to juggle, mate. I'd like to see you juggle this many things. And I was in a bit of denial, if I'm entirely honest. And I'm sure that you have had clients in your treatment room in very similar states of mind. But a wonderful friend suggested that reflexology might be something that I should try. I think she was just trying to get me to sit down for 5 minutes, if I'm entirely honest. And I phoned my local reflexologist, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit semi-hysterical, I would say, because I just burst into tears on her and said, I really need some reflexology, but my diary is so full and I don't know where I'm going to fit it in. And bless her, she did exactly the right thing. She said, take a deep breath and let's work this out together. And she said, what are you doing on Saturday morning? And I said, well, after I've done the ballet run, not much too much really, until the kids go to their dad. So she's like, right, I will come round on Saturday morning. We will put the kids in front of the telly with a snack. And she said, then we'll try and do some reflexology and we'll see how far we get. And however far we get, it will be what you need at that moment in time. She said, if we get 10 minutes, great. If we get half an hour, that'll be brilliant. And if we can do a whole treatment, well, we'll know that we can do that. And we did. We managed a whole treatment, and she came every Saturday for 6 weeks and slowly took me from this frazzled wreck with hormones that were all over the place and adrenal reflexes that were like bullets and so painful, even though she had the lightest of touch. And quite frankly, Mary changed my life because she changed my health. She also changed the health of my children as well, because she started doing some reflexology on them. And when the company sold and I was trying to decide what to do next, it was actually Mary who nudged me and said, well, what about becoming a reflexologist? You know, you're an ex-nurse, you love reflexology, you've become very passionate about it. She said, I can't think of a better person to try and become a reflexologist. And so that's what I did. And since I've done my reflexology, I've been very passionate member of the AOR, been an area group leader, been on the board for the AOR, even been a staff member until last year. I've added into my toolkit so that I also do coaching alongside my reflexology. And the coaching goes up and down, a bit like reflexology, goes up and down. Some weeks you have busy weeks, some weeks you don't. And I've always continued to do some kind of teaching. In 2012, I wrote this book here, which is about my journey with resilience, my journey with stress, and my journey with trying to cope following the death of my best friend and my dad, and a relationship breakdown, and moving house, and my son struggling at school, all in the space of around about 18 months. And again, significant amount of denial in that situation as to what I was and wasn't coping with. But because I was a coach myself, and I was still having coaching, because it's always very good, a bit like us as reflexologists, we do need to swap treatments and make sure we still have reflexology. I was able to get myself sorted out and realize that actually it was my resilience that was low. And I pulled together this model for resilience called the bounce model, and was encouraged by my coach to write this book. Now, the reason these pictures are here is these are my kids, all grown up now, big driving force in helping me put one foot in front of the other and having a good work-life balance. But the reason this is here is, apart from the fact it's my dog and she's absolutely adorable and she's very old now. But in 2019, I got a request by a friend that a newspaper was looking for women who had given up on dating because they preferred the company of their dog, and actually dating wasn't working for them. And it made me laugh so much. I was like, oh yeah, I'll speak to the journalist. Well, long story short, me and Galinda ended up having a makeover and a photo shoot in the garden and appearing in the Daily Mail, you know. And it actually led to some business, because at the bottom of it, they had put Helen Turier, reflexologist and wellbeing coach. And I got some clients out of it. It also ended up in the local newspaper, and I got some clients that way. So, and they came because they connected with my story. And so my point here is, you are all unique individuals. Share your stories, share your journey with reflexology and your well-being journey, and clients will resonate with it, and people will come and connect to you as a therapist. Yeah. So never overlook an opportunity to tell your story, even if you dislike putting your head above the parapet and being seen. The people that will see you are the people that need to see you. So that's a little thought for you there to get your brains going. So what are we going to look at today to help everybody get ready for going back to work? We're going to briefly review the challenges we and our clients have faced in the last year. We're going to look at the effect that level of ongoing stress has had on our brains. We're going to look at how harnessing an optimistic mindset and outlook helps make us more creative and more open to opportunities. I'm then going to share with you my model of resilience and how you can use my checkup from the neck up for days when you are struggling, for days when you're doing really well and you just want to check in with yourself. But it is what it says. It's a checkup from the neck up, because our resilience is a bit like a muscle. If we neglect it, it will wither. So it does with it is something, our mindset is something that we need to check in with on a regular basis. Yeah. And then I'll share with you a little bit about how I've been working with reflexologists in the last year to help them with their mindset. Because who we're choosing to be as a therapist is far, far, far more important than whether you have done a course on the menopause, a course on fertility, a course on cancer treatments. Those are all wonderful things to build our knowledge, but more important is how in tune are you with yourself, your strengths, your areas for growth, and your belief system around you as the therapist that clients need out there. So let's get started with that. So how are you feeling today? Let's have a little poll. Let me see if I can pull my poll up. Where is the poll? Where are you, poll? There it is. So let's see if we can launch that. If you can see the poll, can you give me a little thumbs up? I'm thinking by the little faces that are now peering at the screens, people must be looking at something. So yeah, so just fill it in with what you're feeling, and let's get a feel for where we're at. And we'll give it a little bit longer. So okie dokie. Right, so we've got mixed feelings about opening up next week, and that is absolutely normal. I suspect, let me end the polling and share the results so that you can all see that what we have is that 45% of us here have mixed feelings about opening up. We're excited, bit overwhelmed, bit anxious, probably ricocheting between all of those, and actually probably within any one given half an hour in time we could be going, oh, I'm super excited, and then the next minute, oh my god, I just can't face all that cleaning again and all that organization, etc. So that is perfectly normal. My next question to you is to think about, of those mixed emotions, which one is it that is your prevailing emotion related to opening? Are you more balanced on the positive emotions, or are you more balanced on the negative? Is it the pleasant emotions, or is it the unpleasant emotions that are, you know, how is it? Or is it balanced? Is it sitting like that? Or is it sometimes going unpleasant? But there will be one that is more dominant. And that's just for you to know. Next, I want you to score that on a score of 1 to 10. 1 is low, 10 is high. So if I was feeling super anxious about opening next week because maybe I haven't been vaccinated yet and I've still got children in and out of school, then I might be quite anxious about risk of COVID and having to cancel clients if one of my children tested positive. So I might be a sort of 8 on the anxiety. If, however, I have been vaccinated and it's just me at home, and quite a lot of my client base are over 50 and have all at least had first vaccination, I might be quite low in anxiety, maybe only a 2, and quite excited about opening. So again, for yourselves, just give yourself a score of where you are with that. And we will come back to that a little bit later. So now we've got a thought of where we're all feeling about these things, let's start to think about why we are in this position where we've got these fluctuating emotions. So whilst we have all had a very difficult 12, 13 months, the thing I would say is we are all in the same rough sea, in that the rough sea is the pandemic globally. We are not all sailing in the same boat. Some people will have been sailing quite happily in a nice luxury liner, yeah, because they haven't had to worry about money. They, yes, their life has changed, but they've been doing okay, yeah. Other people may have started off in a small rowing boat, but that may have quickly become that they're just clinging by their fingernails to a plank of wood because they've either had somebody they know die from COVID or be hospitalized from COVID, or they may have been financially very, very compromised, etc. And I think for us as therapists, when we open our doors again, we have to deal with all of our emotions related to opening, but we are also going to get some huge downloads from our clients as well. Some people will have really, really struggled mentally. Now, 1 in 6 people have a mental health problem, according to Mind, before there was a pandemic, before they lived a year without really having their normal coping mechanisms for dealing with stress and anxiety available to them. And those coping mechanisms could be everything from meeting up with friends, to exercising, etc., to seeing you as their complementary therapist. Yeah, so that was pre-COVID, 1 in 6. Nobody has yet done the research that says what that number is now, but the Nuffield Foundation are doing ongoing research. They have a research study called the COVID-19 Social Study, which is ongoing, so one to keep our eyes open for. The other thing I would say is that there were some surveys last summer by the Office of National Statistics which showed that by September last year there had been a 16.4 increase in the number of deaths related to alcoholism and at the effect of alcohol on health than previous years. Okay, so that was before we got to the winter and a November lockdown and then a January to April lockdown. So again, our clients may well disclose to us that they are worried about their drinking because they've been drinking more. And in those circumstances, I'm a big believer in letting them talk and then signposting them to appropriate resources like Alcohol Anonymous, etc., etc., and just being there to listen for them. people have been socially isolated, and again we may find that our clients have become very changed. Our really quiet clients may suddenly become absolute chatterboxes because they've just not spoken to anybody for a very long time, and our chattery clients may actually struggle and not open up as much. So again, take it all in, look after yourselves, but don't be surprised if people are a little bit more discombobulated than last time. Remember, you hold a safe space for them. You hold them for that treatment, but you are not responsible for their ongoing health and well-being. Okay, you are responsible for delivering the reflexology that facilitates them and their body in healing and moving forward in a more balanced way. So be careful about how much you take on of your clients' woes. I firmly believe that grounding pre and post treatment is really, really important, and making sure that you are in a good, balanced place before you put your hands on their feet. We do know that emotion is transferred through touch, and that's huge for us as therapists, because if we're a little bit discombobulated and we put our hands on their feet and we're in a discombobulated state, we're not serving them to the level that we could do. So looking after yourself is really important, and that's why I'm very, very passionate about helping reflexologists to develop a more resilient mindset, because it will help them, it will help you, and that will ultimately help your clients. Remember, anxiety is contagious, so we need to make sure that we are a place of safety, a place of reason, a place of signposting, etc. Now, part of the reason people have been challenged is because of something called surge capacity. Surge capacity is a psychological term for a collection of adaptive systems, mental and physical, that we draw upon in acutely stressful states, and it helps get us through. Yeah, but most acutely stressful states are short term, and of course this has been long term. So what psychologists have found is that a lot of people are what they call surge capacity depleted at the moment, so they haven't got the resources that they used to have. Again, another reason why I think we're all going to be super, super busy. Okay. The next is ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is any loss that's unclear and lacks resolution. And so that is big for loss of life, but it's all, and loss of a way of life, but also, and a lot of my health professional friends are saying that families who had somebody die in intensive care have real problems with ambiguous loss because they weren't there with them when they died. And so again, you know, don't be unsurprised if there are you know, when you're working, and I'm sure you found this, sometimes you can be working on somebody's feet and you'll be on a reflex and they'll suddenly have tears streaming down their face because you've just released something in them. And in those situations, I'm a big believer in passing the tissues and then just saying, it's fine, you know, it needs to come out. It's just a release. It's absolutely fine. Let's just let it out. We don't need to know why it's happened on that reflex, etc. Let's just accept that your body needed that release at this moment in time, and it's okay. And of course, our long COVID clients. So there are long COVID clients who are recovering from having been ventilated for a long time in intensive care. Most ventilations in intensive care pre-COVID were anywhere from sort of 4 days to maybe 10 days. It's quite a long time. But COVID patients were often ventilated for 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes a lot longer than 6 weeks, sometimes 8 or 12 weeks. Those clients, those patients who were ventilated for a long time, have to do a whole rehab, a whole recovery, because they haven't walked, they haven't moved, etc. And Michael Rosen is the author, the beautiful documentary on ITV, A Year in the Life of COVID. If you haven't seen it, oh my God, I so recommend watching it. It is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, but such a powerful, powerful documentary about that year, our year of COVID, and its impact on people like Michael Rosen, and he shares his story. The people with long COVID who weren't hospitalized, long COVID is a very, very individual disease. Everybody seems to be presenting slightly differently. The main thread is fatigue. Fatigue is a big, big problem. So don't get hung up, and I've already started to see these threads in the Reflexology forums about people wanting protocols for long COVID. Dial it back, folks, dial it right back. We do holistic reflexology. The feet tell us what they need. The client tells us what their presenting problem is. That might be fatigue, it might be headaches, it might be brain fog, it might be a digestive system that's not as strong as it used to be, it might be palpitations. Yeah. Work with what the feet are telling you. Work with what your client is telling you. Trust your basic good reflexology treatment and your intuition of tuning into those reflexes and just spending a little more time or being a little lighter on certain reflexes. Don't get hung up on trying to find a protocol for long COVID, because it's individual. And this is where I treated quite a few people with long COVID last autumn with some really great results. And every treatment was different, all right? Because every time their feet seemed to need something different. Now, I said about being a signpost, and I've seen as well in the forums some threads about lateral flow testing and should we or shouldn't we. Anybody who's got kids in school is already having to do lateral flow testing. I personally believe that I'm not going to do it. I personally don't think that they are that accurate, and certainly dear old Professor Tim Spector, who created the Zoe app and is been a very good source of information in the past year. His whole point is that actually the lateral flow tests are not good at picking up asymptomatic COVID. So his big thing is actually be aware of the symptoms, of which there are 20 symptoms of COVID that have been coming out in the last year. So think more about that rather than relying on the lateral flow testing. But obviously, if you've got kids in school, you're going to be doing that anyway. And the other thing I would say is, I think if you think about where we were last July and where we are now, we have a significant percentage of the population who are now vaccinated. And therefore, and we know more about COVID now. So actually, we are in a much, much safer place than we were last year. Okay. Oh, somebody said the poll is covering the slides. It should have disappeared. The poll should no longer be there. Okay, there we go. How's that gone now? There we go. Excellent. Thank you for telling me. That's very helpful. You see, this is why the chat is so good, because it flicks in my corner of my eye because I can't see what you see. So thank you very, very much. Okay. There we go. So we should be clear now. So let's have a think about what is happening with our brains and why people are discombobulated. And it all comes down to those good old things, stress and stress hormones. Yeah, something that we are all super, super familiar with. However, how does it affect our thinking? The thing is, when you think a negative thought, your brain cell, the negative thought goes down the brain cell and it seeks to make a connection with the next brain cell through your dendrites, that electrical impulse. It wants to go from this brain cell to this brain cell. Now, the end of the dendrites, when it's a negative thought, they release cortisol. So the connection's not made and your thinking gets shut down. Yeah, your brain gets flooded with cortisol and it shuts off access to your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the rational part of your brain, the thinking, problem solving, creative part. So thinking negatively, next week is going to be so hard. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to cope. Oh, it's going to be so busy. Oh, I'm going to be so stressed. When you think like that, you are flooding your brain with cortisol and you are cutting off your creativity. So one of the things that I teach on the Resilient Reflexologist is how to change that, how to flip our thinking and break that habit so that we reframe it and go, next week is going to be interesting. I'm fascinated and curious to know how my clients have been coping. I'm going to pace myself so I have plenty of recovery time between each client. That is positive. What happens when we think positively is we are ends of our dendrites, that electrical impulse comes down the brain cell and the ends of the dendrites release serotonin. Serotonin, as we know as therapists, is one of our feel good hormones, and it actually then empowers the brain. It acts as a conductor, so that brain impulse goes from one to the next, and your brain literally lights up. The neurons, they surge, and you get creativity, you get problem solving. So the second you start to frame your thoughts and your words about next week in a positive, empowering, inquisitive way, you actually flood your brain with serotonin. You make it much, much more creative. Yeah. And that is good for us, and it's good for us and our healing. Yeah. Now, for some people who may have been living with a lot of negative head chatter for a long time, that may sound like it's impossible. That's why I encourage people to come on the course, because I used to be a negative, catastrophic thinker. I would think of the worst case scenario, work out if I could manage that, and often, guess what? Worst case scenario actually happened 9 times out of 10, because that's where my thinking was taking me. And the reason that's where my thinking was taking me was not only because of the cortisol, but also because your subconscious mind acts like your faithful servant. It delivers to you what your strongest thought is, and it works in conjunction with an area of your brain called the reticular activating system, which is like a giant filter which helps filter to you what you want. Now, the time that you will most be aware of your reticular activating system, for example, is if you want to purchase a car and you've done a lot of research and you've researched purchasing this car and you've decided you want a purple car because that's your therapy colours and you're going to have it branded, and you're going for this particular model of car because there aren't very many of those purple ones around. Well, the second you start thinking a lot about a purple car, you will suddenly become aware of lots of purple cars, because your reticular activating system and your subconscious mind go, oh, Helen wants purple cars in her life. Great, I can show her purple cars. And all of a sudden, every car park you drive into, there is a purple car there. Now, those purple cars were all there in the first place, but your reticular activating system had filtered them out because they weren't your dominant thought. But the second it becomes your dominant thought, your reticular activating system helps show more. And on the course, I teach you how to use your subconscious mind and your reticular activating system to show you opportunities, not only in your life, but in your businesses as well. I also teach you how to use things like tapping and havening and things like that, tools that you can help to manage your state. And I share with people a PDF that I developed for my clients so that they have got tools in their toolkit. So when they're overwhelmed with emotions, they can dip in and use some of these therapies to help them. Because we know the mind and the body are interconnected. Yeah. Think about when you are sad. When you're very sad about something, where does your eye gaze go? Where does your body go? You slump forward and you tend to look down. When you're sad, you almost fold in on yourself to protect yourself. You'll have seen this in your clients, yeah? When you're very stressed and very, very tense, your shoulders come up around your ears. Now, part of the reason that happens, the reason we get tight shoulders, is because some of the nerves that feed the muscles in our shoulders come directly from the bottom of our brain stem into our shoulders. So if we're stressed and we're anxious, comes from the brain stem, of course, that then means that those shoulders tighten up and we end up with our shoulders around our ear and we end up with stiff necks. Yeah. So body mind connection. Look after your body, feel in your body, where's your stress, where's your tension, and then move your body. You move your body, you shift your thinking as well. So if you're thinking, oh God, I can't do this. Oh, for heaven's sake, this is so difficult. And you can see immediately my body is slumped. Whereas if I change that and I go, you know what? We've got this, Helen. We have absolutely got this. You know what? You can do this. You've got all the resources you need. You just need to harness them. Immediately, eyes up, shoulders back, posture is straighter. So when you're feeling tense, tune into it. Where is that tension in my body? Where is my thinking? How can I adjust? How can I get myself out of that? This is one of the reasons why exercise is so powerful for relief of depression and anxiety, because the body is designed to move and we burn that stress off. It's another thing that I teach on the course, again, is this, and the stress response is something that we all know about, but there is more to it when you think about the mind-body connection. I also teach about emotions and how we need to understand our emotions, not just for us, but also for our clients as well. And this is how this then reflects into everyday life, because this is what happened with Pippa. So Pippa was on our October course and is also one of my resilient reflexologists who comes to reflective practice. And what she shared with us, that was in March, the night before going back to school, after a 3-month cold and miserable hiatus, her 13-year-old son was really anxious about going back to school. And so Pippa used one of the tools that I'd put in her toolkit on the Resilient Reflexologist course. And she talked her son through the emotions grid, which is part of Mark Brackett's ruler system. And her son loved the different feelings, the different moods, the different colours. And it helped take him from being tense and anxious and nervous to feeling okay about going back to school. And this is what I shared, an element of it. Okay, this is part of the ruler system where we have our emotions in this grid. Okay, our red emotions are high energy, unpleasant. Our blue emotions are low energy, unpleasant. Our yellows are our high energy, pleasant emotions, happiness, euphoria, excitement, they're all up there. Our green are pleasant, low energy. That's how we feel after we've done a spot of meditation, when we've been for a nice walk. So when we think about which of those ones we're in, and then how do we move from unpleasant to pleasant? And these are some examples that are used. So positive self-talk, if I'm feeling anxious and my negative head chatter has got out of control. And instead of being my own best friend, I'm being the school bully in my own head. You'd be surprised how many women have the school bully living in their head instead of the empowering, encouraging, friendly, best friend that actually we need to be for ourselves. And what we learn is we learn about how to move through these, how to take a meta moment, which can enable us to be able to process our emotions effectively. One little tool that I use is this. You can use this on yourself and you can teach your clients, okay? It's not rocket science. You don't need a qualification to do this. It's really simple and you can do it now. Take your fingers and on your forehead, start to make the infinity symbol, which is essentially a figure of 8 lying on its side. And put that so it's right in your head. So you're using it. And as you go across the middle, and we keep doing the infinity symbol, as we go across the middle, we're going across our third eye. That helps stimulate the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. We slow our breathing. We all know as we slow our breathing, that's how we shut down our stress response. A slower breath rate, a slower heart rate, and the switch starts to switch off. We reduce the cortisol. As we stimulate the pituitary and the pineal gland, we start to increase the levels of oxytocin. Oxytocin helps. You don't get oxytocin and cortisol at the same time. Oxytocin is the antidote for cortisol. So just doing this calms the mind and calms your body. If you wake up in the night with a head full of chatter, lie in bed and just do this. You will feel calmer. Another technique that I teach is an energy rebalancing and emotional rebalancing, which is a mixture of tapping, thought field therapy, eye movement desensitization, and havening, which is a stroking therapy, which again releases oxytocin. All of these are tools we can put in our toolkits to help us build our resilience. Okay, now resilience is something that we can all develop. It's not a personality trait that you either have or don't have. It is simply a combination of thoughts and behaviors and actions that can be learnt and developed by anybody. It's like a muscle. We need to make sure that we keep it honed and toned for our mental well-being and our physical well-being, because we know as therapists, you cannot separate the mind from the body. It does not matter how often you go to the gym, how often you eat a plant-based, nutrient-rich diet. If you are flooding yourself on a regular basis with negative head chatter, and you're looping around with limiting beliefs and struggling, you will affect your well-being. Mind and body are connected. Resilience is connected mind and body. Now, the big researchers, the original researchers, were Werner and Smith. They did a longitudinal study for 40 years, and what they found was that there were some protective factors that really help you with your resilience. Those include believing that you can impact your own destiny, emotional support from outside of the family, and a strong internal locus of control, problem-solving ability, and thinking that there is good going to come out of this. So that's what I put into my bounce model of resilience. It's essentially like a trampoline. If you've got all of these little people holding this trampoline nice and tight, it does not matter what life throws at you, you will bounce back, and you will bounce back with strength and control, and you will be able to form a positive outcome from whatever adversity life has thrown at you. And those little people are these principles, your belief system. That's hugely powerful in what happens to you in your life. Your level of optimism and your ability to set goals that empower you. Who you're choosing to be. Are you choosing to be a solution-finding, problem-solving person who overcomes adversity? Or are we giving in to some of our limiting beliefs and becoming a victim of circumstance? Are we nurturing ourselves? Now, as therapists, we're pretty good at telling people about self-care. But how often do we do our self-care? And I'm not talking about giving yourself a nice little bubble bath. I'm talking about your level of self-compassion. I'm talking about how you understand how stress impacts you, how you take daily steps to make sure you're managing your mindset and your stress. Very, very different from a self-care bath or a nice pamper treatment. This is about mind-body connection and connection to our friends and our family and our support systems in particular for our business, because as therapists we often work solo. You know, we're not in a big, most of us aren't in big clinics surrounded by other therapists. We're out there on our own, so connection is really important. And that leads us to helping make sure that we find the positive things, because even on the rubbishest of days, even when the most terrible things have happened, there is still glimmers of silver linings. There are still positive outcomes. We just have to look for them. And that's something, again, that I share how we do that on the course. Everybody can use this checkup from the neck up, which is these very simple questions. If you want a copy of these slides, email me after this and I will ping them to you via email. Yeah, so just make a note. You will have got my email address because of the Eventbrite, but if not, you can look me up on the AOR website, or if you're connected to me on Facebook, because you probably came to this via Facebook, then just message me, all right? And then print this off and keep it handy. When I've got a challenge, what is my belief about this situation? Is my belief empowering me or disempowering me? Yeah. What positive outcome am I looking for? Positive outcome, Helen, not worst case scenario. Yeah, that's the one I have to really readjust. Even now, sometimes I have to adjust that and go, don't look at the catastrophe, Helen. Look at the positive. Where's the learning? Yeah. Who am I choosing to be? Am I managing my stress response so that I've got full access to my prefrontal cortex so that I am solution finding, not going inward and going, oh my goodness, woe is me. It is just so terrible and it's so hard and it's not my fault and it's the world. Yeah. And all that negative head chatter. It's about managing that stress response so I can be my best self. And developing resources. Now, this is one resource that we use. This is called a high self map, right? Essentially, so this is all my habits and behaviors that have been reframed into positive. So I have a positive mental attitude, a positive mental habit, and also physical as well, because mind and spiritual, we're all interconnected, and we create these amazing high self maps, and we use these as affirmations on a daily basis so that we center ourselves and ground ourselves. We also use something called goal mapping, which is how we set these positive, empowering, creative maps to help empower our businesses. So we use check up from the neck up, and it gets you back on track. This very briefly is how I work. You can take what you need from this. You can just download the free ebook. If Eventbrite, if you haven't ever downloaded my free ebook, you will not be on my mailing list. You need to download the free ebook to get on my mailing list so that you can get regular motivational emails. And by regular, I mean about once a month, because I'm not the greatest at doing regular newsletters. You can also come and join me on my course, which starts next Saturday. And it's an hour and a half on a Saturday morning. It is recorded, so that you can listen again, or if you can't make that time, you can then schedule time to watch it yourself. I am in the process of writing a book, halfway through. And then I also work with people one-to-one, because some people prefer one-to-one. Some people would prefer to have an hour's coaching once a week for, once every other week for 10 weeks, 6 months, whatever. And that is a super individual way. And in those situations, we do everything from confidence boosting to reflective practice to supervision to goal setting to business planning to using NLP techniques to unblock some of the energy blocking stuff that's been going on with us. And so if you think this has resonated with you and you want to work with me now or in the future, pick what works best for you. And that's why it's handy to have the slides, because some people may be ready to really start working on their mindset now, and other people, this might have just started to sow that seed. Yeah, a little bit like when we're talking about reflexology. We talk about something, we sow a seed about how powerful reflexology is and how effective it is. And then we water it with our social media posts and our conversations, etc. And then at some point in the future, that person may turn into a client. Yeah, we do that with our business all the time. So don't think about selling yourself as a therapist. Think about selling the benefits of reflexology, and selling is about having conversations. You're just having conversations about how amazing reflexology is, and that will lead you to having clients. And those conversations are conversations in the local shop, they're conversations with friends and family, they're conversations on your social media posts about sharing about something that is positive, a bit of reflexology research, whatever. Selling is just conversations about connecting with people so that you sow seeds with them so that those that are ready to engage will do. Some will engage straight away. Some may come back to you at a later date, or they may not come to you, but they may go to a fellow therapist, which loops me back round quite nicely to the beginning where I said none of us are competitors, we're all here supporting each other. And I've worked with loads of reflexologists over the last year, and even some that have got psychology degrees and are already counsellors and things, and they have still found the work that I've been doing with them to be powerful and helpful. So even when we know stuff, revisiting it reignites us and puts us back on track. So how can you be your best self? First of all, listen to your head chatter. Is your head chatter positive and empowering, like it's your own best friend, or is it negative and disempowering, like it is your own worst enemy? When you listen to your head chatter, you can tune into your limiting beliefs. Yeah, limiting beliefs tend to pop up when we use words like should. I should do that. Okay, yeah, or whatever. Or when we're negative. Oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that, but. Or I'm useless. That's a good one. I'm useless at maths. I'm useless at selling. I hate selling. Oh, I don't, I'm useless at marketing. I'm terrible at social media. All of those underpin, make us aware of limiting beliefs. Manage your emotions. Learn how to move through the grid system so that you are in flow and you're recognizing your emotions as what they are. Just information about us and our external world, and then how we're processing it within our bodies. And let's learn how to move so that we spend more time. We're still going to feel unpleasant emotions because otherwise we wouldn't be human beings. But let's move ourselves so that we get the information and the learning from the unpleasant, and then how we move to the pleasant. Give yourself permission to look for a positive outcome. We may well be busy. It may well take our fingers and our hands a little while to get used to doing treatments again, having not done them for a while, but we will get there. And let's pace ourselves and make sure that we look after ourselves. Create powerful goals for yourself. Visualize yourself achieving them. Use tools like I teach on goal mapping. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. You want next week to be fun, exciting. You want next week to be beautifully paced. You want the time to connect with your clients. You want to hold a safe space for them. You want to hold a safe space for yourself as well. So think about what you want next week, not what you don't want. And when you think about it, you use positive, empowering language, both internally and externally. That means you talk to yourself as if you're your own best friend and you become the hero in your life story. And you reach out and connect to other people that are going to empower you. So very briefly, this is the details of the course. It will be in this PowerPoint that I'll send you, the PDF of this, so that you can have a look at what we explore, so that you can put more tools in your toolkit for helping you and your clients. And I know that it works, and it's not me that's just saying it because I created it. This is the feedback that others have given me. The benefits are that you raise your awareness of your unique strengths as a reflexologist, as a therapist. It makes you feel stronger and more confident, and that attracts more of the clients that you want. It gives you the clarity and the confidence for developing the business that you deserve to develop, the life that you deserve to develop. And that's because you become more tuned in to your mind-body connection. You develop empowering goals that help keep you going. You have got tools to harness the emotional roller coaster that is just life in general. Yeah. And it helps you find optimism even in the face of adversity. That allows you to find a way to provide the enhanced ability to support your clients in a truly holistic way. And that's a holistic way where it's not about learning the next reflexology technique. It's about understanding yourself as a therapist and what you're offering your clients and holding that safe space for them and giving them the beautiful treatment that is reflexology. And all of that helps you to thrive in an ever-changing world, because COVID is going to be around for a while. We are going to be living with this as we recover from it. And we know as therapists, the well-being of our whole mind, body and spirit is so key to our health. Now, it's all recorded when I do these, the course, so that people can listen in their own time. You do get CPD points at the end when you've completed the course. You get all the notes and you get loads and loads of tools to put in your toolkit so that you are fully empowered. You also, and that's in the bonuses there. And anybody who decides that this is for them and they want to sign up, if you sign up before Sunday evening, you will also get a one-to-one coaching session with me, and you can come join my reflective practice community. So for the next 6 months, on the first Friday of every month, you have a confidential safe space with other reflexologists. There's 6 of us at the moment to talk through, so you grow and develop as a practitioner. And that bonus is only available to people who decide that they want to join and do that before Sunday. So let's have some tips for coping. Be informed, be a reliable signpost for your community around, because there's a lot of disinformation out there. You know, there's a lot of hysteria, there's a lot of hype. So be the go-to person for common sense, for reliable signposting. Keep calm and maintain a positive mindset. Manage your risk individually. Tune out the noise of what else is going on in the reflexology community. Look after you and your well-being in your community for yourself and your practice. Yeah. Now, for me, that means keeping an eye on local rates. Now, we're really lucky in West Sussex because West Sussex County Council are actually very good with their newsletters of putting in what the hospital admission rates are and where the peaks are. And so for me, last November and December, when rates were rising, actually in my area, they really weren't too bad at all. They did rise in January quite significantly, but by then, of course, we were closed. So be informed about your local area. Look after yourself. Remember, your clients need you. Your families need you. So be secure that it is okay to say no. When you're looking at your diary and somebody is demanding and begging to be squeezed in next week, oh, please, Helen, just squeeze me in. And I know that that will push me over the edge because actually I can't deal with that many clients in one day. My thumbs don't deal with it. My emotions don't deal with it. I max at 4 clients a day. After that, nobody's getting anything out of me. So I'm always got a capacity on what I can earn because 4 energetically for me is all I can do. So I have no problems with saying no. I've said yes in the past, and I believe I didn't deliver for myself or my clients. So I have firm boundaries. Nope, I'm ever so sorry. I've got no vacancies next week. So what I can offer you is this date. Yeah, be firm, look after yourself, you know. And you know what they do? I had this week because I had a really regular client. I messaged her, emailed her and left her a voicemail on Monday and said, this is the appointments that I've got. Which one do you want? It took her until yesterday evening to come back and none of those appointments were available anymore. And she was really upset. And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry. I messaged you on Monday. This is Friday, you know. So the next available appointment I have is the 5th of May. Would you like the 5th of May? Yes, she said. You know. Now, previously, a couple of years back, I would have bent over backwards to fit her in. I would have put her before me. And I would have done me and her a disservice. So that's just my humble opinion. That's all this is. It's my opinion. So I manage my responses and I regularly use my checkup stuff. So what have we learned today? We know that resilience is something that we can learn. Never underestimate the power of your thinking. Remember, keep bouncing and you can stay resilient. You can build your business even amongst a global pandemic. All of you has unique strengths, courage, and stamina. All of you have powerful, powerful ways to connect with your clients that need you. Yeah, so be there for them and make sure you look after yourself. So there we go. I am going to stop the screen share now, and then anybody who wants to ask questions can do. Oh, and somebody said, thank you for, I'm now imagining a flatter sea. Yes, that's what I want. The rough sea. We are now going to all get into really comfortable boats, yeah, so that we can sail on knowing that we're all right. So that's me. I'm done with chattering. If you've got questions and you want to ask them, unmute yourself and go for it. Otherwise, I'll just be blathering on for hours, quite frankly, you know. And if you don't want to, type something in the chat box. And I think I did see somebody was having problems with hearing. So I have recorded this. And so if you email me and say, Helen, I'm the person that couldn't hear the beginning, then I will send you the recording as well as the 2 people who specifically requested that I record it. In fact, let me stop recording so that